I'm focused on this theory cause it keeps me from this fire. The Holy Ghost was with me, so my fear I leave behind. My sins were all diminished when he took that breath and died. And if you think I'ma give up on my God, the devil is a lie. The devil is a lie. The devil is a lie.
Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be watching that leaked town hall video that Steven Crowder decided to leak of the Daily Wire explaining why Candace Owens was fired from the Daily Wire. And this was a big moment of contention on the right and sent shockwaves. And of course, a lot of people were like, oh, they got rid of Candace for questioning Israel because she had a difference of opinion as far as the war and was speaking out, and she didn't like dead children in Gaza and things like that, when the reality of the situation was that it was always a lot deeper than that. I, at the time, did a pretty expansive breakdown of their breakdown and her breakdown with Ben and stuff. And I think I did it before she was officially fired. Yeah, I think so. I came up with that video, but explaining their beef because he had publicly said that she had a faux sophistication, and then so she ran and went on Tucker Carlson's show and and did that tweet about him and stuff, and which she responded and brought up that tweet, and that was one of the reasons why they let her go. But ultimately, they felt like she was damaging their brand, and Jeremy put out a list of evidence and had video clips and stuff, which I felt, well, I guess they felt that it was necessary to do that because a lot of people had worked on that podcast and would kind of be like, what happened? Why, I don't understand. And we're probably shell shocked. So he laid out an argument. I don't know why Stephen decided to leak this other than someone sent it to him and he felt the public deserved to know about it. He has a odd sort of statement when he tweeted it out that says, "This is why I don't play this game." I'm not sure what that meant, but I thought Jeremy looked very reasonable, and I'm assuming that they didn't put it out at the time and has never put it out because of legal reasons and whatever agreements that they sort of had with her and NDAs and so on and so forth, because they haven't really been super forthright. The most that we kind of could get out of it was an X space that Jeremy was on maybe a year or so ago, kind of explaining it, which you could kind of like, okay, well, it seemed like she was fired. But Andrew Klavan, of course, said that he was really upset about the Crisis King stuff, which Candace did respond to, and she didn't represent Klavan accurately when they talked about it. So anyway, it's a little bit down memory lane, and I said that I would talk about it because this was dropped, I think, on Saturday, and we haven't got a chance to talk about it yet. I do apologize for yesterday. I did end the show a little bit early. I was having like issues with the computer, but I also felt really kind of sick, and I had a sinus headache. And so after I was done streaming, I just got in my bed and curled up with the pillow. My sister called and was like, "What do you want for dinner?" And I told her Chick-fil-A, and she said that was too far. And I'm like, well, you asked, and that was my answer. So she got me some other food, which did not stay down. So I guess it's fine that I didn't eat Chick-fil-A. But yeah, and I slept a lot yesterday trying to sleep off my sinus headache because it feels like there's pain going up here, up there, and then I get a bit nauseous. So I don't know, the weather maybe, and I don't know. I didn't get a lot of sleep the other night, so I feel better. And I did kind of have a headache still earlier today and thought maybe I might not go live, but I feel better, and hopefully this won't be a too long of a broadcast. Hopefully it'll just be an hour. I'll try not to interrupt too much, but you guys know that I will interrupt. But I feel okay. So again, this dropped on Saturday. Someone apparently leaked it to Steven. I assume maybe they just recently leaked it because I can't see him not like leaking it earlier. I don't understand that this is why I don't play games. I don't understand that particular commentary, but it was interesting, and I'm glad that he did it, I guess.
And everybody, 15 minutes ago, the Daily Wire terminated its relationship with Candace Owens.
Hold on.
Voice for
Hold on, let me just go back a little bit. I'm sorry. I saw that my internet kind of went out for a second.
And everybody, 15 minutes ago, the Daily Wire terminated its relationship with Candace Owens. Candace has been an incredibly conservative for years. Unfortunately, it's become more and more clear, and it's now unavoidably so, that Candace has moved in a direction that the Daily Wire simply cannot and will not support. Candace's shift has done enormous damage to our brand, damage that we've decided we just can't allow to continue. Mostly, but by no means all of this tarnishment to our brand stems from Candace's flirting with, looking at content widely viewed as anti-Semitic, and from associating herself with well-known anti-Semites. The Daily Wire, contrary to public opinion, is not owned by Jews. In fact, the majority of it is owned by Christians, myself included. And we know that anti-Semitism as a charge is like the charge of racism, often made far too lightly by those who profiteer from such accusations, groups like the ADL or BLM. But that doesn't mean that racism and anti-Semitism don't exist. They obviously do, and they just as obviously have no place in our national discourse. Candace refusing to condemn Kanye West, for example, is not anti-Semitism. I said as much at the time, and I even encouraged Candace not to disinvite Ye from her Greatest Lie Ever Sold premiere after his "I'm going DEFCON 3 on Jewish people" tweet a year and a half ago. I thought at that time that one remark, even a remark as plainly anti-Semitic and asinine as that, wasn't proof that Kanye himself was necessarily an anti-Semite. People say and do all kinds of dumb things all the time, and I didn't think that Candace should necessarily distance herself from her friend at that moment.
That was probably a mistake in hindsight, but I don't think I would have made that mistake at the time if I was Jeremy. By the way, in the I hope I saw there was a kind of an issue with the internet like a second ago, but hopefully everything's okay right now. In the video that I did, which came out on I think maybe it was December of 2023. So it was before this town hall. So she was still employed at the time when I made the video. I did a whole chronicle of her, I guess, dealing with the issues of anti-Semitism and accusations even prior to the Ye thing. So I don't, Ben Shapiro, someone asked him, did he think Candace was anti-Semitic? And he said, I don't think that term is very helpful because it's so like overused. But you can look at the sorts of things that she's doing, which Jeremy will lay out, and kind of come to that conclusion, or just say what she's actually engaging in that we see. We don't know what's in her heart, but what she's doing is wrong and it's evil. I think that, or, you know, when you look back at her getting, people trying to cancel her from the Israel lobby, I guess, came at her because of some comments that she made about Hitler, which were really made out of ignorance, because she really didn't know what globalism and nationalism was and stuff. And she said some dumb things. People tried to cancel her, and there's a big pouncing, and that was from the Israel lobby. And when Kanye said his crazy stuff, she really like did a lot of dodging and bobbing and weaving and pretzel like movements to try to defend Kanye. And that also caused some tension. It's interesting that Jeremy said that he encouraged her to still invite Kanye to her stuff, because I know Ben at that time was pretty upset about it, but I chronicled that and what Ye ended up saying and stuff that she said to defend him. And it's an interesting video. If you haven't seen it, encourage you to go to watch it if you got the time. It's about an hour long, but it goes through that history to the point of some of the comments that she's making about Israel and so on, and then the blow up, and then the Crisis King tweet and stuff. So there's more background and information that I have laid out if you guys want to go look at that. But let's get back to this.
I find it troubling that Candace continued to stand by Ye as the weeks went on, and he continued what became maybe the biggest anti-Semitic meltdown in American public life, a meltdown that was prominent apologists for anti-Semitism in the country, Nick Fuentes? Yes, I did. And I argued pretty passionately with Candace about that point at the time. I still think that her behavior
and Ben at the time really didn't like it either, but he didn't, at least publicly at the time, think that it kind of rose to that, or maybe he didn't have that power to do that. But he said if Candace had said the things that Ye had said, then he thought that she should have been fired. But people could understand and sympathize that was her friend. Anyway, I think that there were red flags. They obviously included, they'll get to this, but those red flags were considered into her contract as well, which makes me think that maybe she did some of this stuff on purpose to get fired. I don't know, because her lawyer, they will reveal that her lawyer actually wrote that into the contract about an anti-Semitism clause, because she really went for it, in my opinion. But let's keep watching.
Here are just a few examples from just the last few weeks. Candace appeared on the Fresh and Fit podcast, which itself skews anti-Semitism and talks about the JQ, which means the Jewish question, routinely. And Candace said nothing while the host played a cha-ching cash register sound at the mention of any Jew or Israel, including Ben Shapiro's wife. We have a clip here of that for you.
He is very passionate about Israel. He's married to an Israeli. I mean, that makes sense, I guess. Yeah. You know?
That I did not know. That was one thing I did not know. I did not see before. I have not included in any video I've done. That was news to me about her being on the podcast. And by the way, they absolutely, Myron says some off the wall anti-Semitic stuff, crazy stuff. And they're not good people on the Fresh and Fit. They're degenerates themselves. It's a very popular podcast, but yeah, just I didn't even know he did that with the cha-ching stuff. Wow.
Imagine Ben Shapiro sitting on a podcast that was known for spewing hate toward Black people, and then sitting idly by while the host made jokes, racist jokes about Candace's family. You can't imagine it because it's unimaginable. It would just never happen. Only a few weeks before that, Candace lamented, quote, DC Jews, who she says are Marxists and monsters, and who, quote, want nothing more than political power and need to be weeded out. Then just last week, Candace liked a post on X from an account called Christ Gnosis, asking if a well-known rabbi is, quote, drunk on Christian blood again. Now, if you aren't aware, the idea that rabbis and Jews more broadly drink the blood of Christians is one of the oldest expressions of anti-Semitism. It even has its own name. It's called the blood libel, and it's been used to pit Christians against Jews since the Middle Ages. The blood libel has been used all throughout history to incite the hatred and murder of Jews. I don't claim to know what's in Candace's heart. What I know, as I've said, is that she has been flirting with, winking at, and even directly engaging in content that's widely viewed to be anti-Semitic.
Yeah, so the liking the blood, drunk on Christian blood tweet, Candace did address this, like, because Andrew Klavan mentioned it in his rant about her. So she did bring it up, and she defended herself by saying that she liked a tweet of someone who was defending her, and it still had the blood libel in it though. Like, so this is like evidence on top of other evidence. You know, if it was a lone thing, you could kind of look past it, I suppose, but you did like the tweet. There's been tweets that I liked some of the things in it, but I'm like, they said this other thing in there, so I'm gonna not like that. I wish they would have left that degenerate sort of thing out of it, you know, because I only like half the tweet and I don't want to like that. Yeah, so especially if you're liking stuff to affirm it. Now she'll just go and likes. She liked the tweet that I wrote the other day, because someone had captioned something and claimed that she didn't read the Bible, and it was a reverend or claiming to be a reverend. I don't know much about him. I just saw that he makes content about her, retweets content about her, and claimed that in a clip, Candace said that she didn't read the Bible. And so I watched the clip because I'm like, oh, that's interesting. If Candace doesn't just claim that she didn't read the Bible, that's messed up. So I watched it. I'm like, she didn't say that. So she said that if she has questions, she'll go to her priest. That's what she said. So I wrote in the comments, I said, I don't like Candace, but that's not what she said. That's all I said. And I looked at my notifications. I'm like, oh, Candace Owens liked my tweet. It's not that she doesn't like tweets of people defending her. But it did have the blood libel in there. If that was a lone thing, maybe that would be different. But she did defend herself. I've covered that too. Just wanted to add that in there.
And even worse, known and unabashed anti-Semites seem to have taken a real liking to her. They routinely celebrate her, invite her on their podcasts, like her ex posts, and retweet them. And she frequently reciprocates. Candace has made something of a sport in these last months out of strongly implying negative things about Jews, only to then deny that she was ever actually talking about the Jews in the first place. Candace made no statement at all in the days after Hamas terrorists raped, murdered, and tortured over 1,000 Israeli civilians, mostly Jews, some Americans. And then they took hundreds more hostage. But then on October 28th of 2023, while anti-Israel protests were raging in London, where Candace, I believe, was at the time, she reposted a video of the protests on X, commenting, quote, "Interesting thing happening here. People are not accepting the media narrative about what's happening in the Middle East, despite the insistent rhetoric from government officials." On November 3rd, she posted, quote, "No government anywhere has a right to commit a genocide ever. There is no justification for a genocide. I can't believe this even needs to be said or is even considered the least bit controversial to state." There was only one country on earth being accused of genocide at the time. Anti-Semites on X took to it immediately. They cheered at what they rightly or wrongly interpreted as Candace smearing Israel. And Candace didn't rebuff their interpretation. But when Dave Rubin came to the exact same conclusion as the anti-Semites, only instead of cheering for Candace, found it vile and rebuked her, Candace quickly attacked, saying, quote, "What's amazing about this is that I didn't name any country in this tweet. I simply stated that genocide is wrong always. This is not a controversial stance. Interesting how you interpreted it." And then followed up with, quote, "In short, if the blanket statement that genocide is wrong upsets you in any way, then you need to check yourself. I said exactly what I meant, and I won't be backing down or apologizing or further clarifying this statement." Within 24 hours, Candace liked a post calling Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu a war criminal. Now let's be clear.
Just to pause right there with the whole genocide tweet. I've covered that too in my videos regarding Candace, and I've mentioned in other sort of articles detailing this time. She did go on to talk more about this. Like, she went on Piers Morgan's show and he asked her about this. And she claimed, not at the time when she was going back and forth with Dave Rubin or these people, whatever, she will now claim that that genocide tweet was not about the government of Israel, whatever, but was about Brian Mast. So she's like, so I was criticizing my own government. Now, Brian Mast is a congressman. And the tweet, she said the genocide thing was about Brian Mast, but the tweet that she had about Brian Mast that she had reposted wasn't even in the same day, and they weren't in the same thread. So how would people connect those dots? And she claims that Brian Mast was using genocidal language because he said something about we have to be very careful about using the phrase innocent Palestinian or something. And so she thought that that was genocidal language, and a lot of people were criticizing Brian Mast. And she would only play this clip that was viral going around. Now, if you actually go watch, there's a longer video that you guys can go watch on YouTube when they were discussing a bill. What actually happened was they were discussing a bill that was about limiting dual resources that people could also maybe use for terror attacks in the future, because he said October the 7th didn't happen in a vacuum. And so they don't want to send like I don't know, like big bulldozers or something that could be used to eventually tear down fences or something like that, so that they can still send them aid, but not something that they can somehow transform into some kind of use for terrorists. So that's why he was saying we got to be careful about throwing around the term innocent Palestinian, because, people grow up and commit acts of terror, and the people are indoctrinated, etc. But he wasn't saying basically screw them kids, drop the bombs, they're not innocent, it's fine if we kill them. So he wasn't using genocidal language. That wasn't his purpose for saying that kind of stuff. But Candace Owens went on the Breakfast Club. I think she said that on Piers Morgan's show and stuff, and she went on, I think it was Flagrant as well. Maybe it wasn't Flagrant. No, I don't think it was Flagrant. Maybe she said it to Dave Smith. I don't think she was on Flagrant. But she went on a different podcast repeating that same lie about Brian Mast, and never revealed to her audience the actual context of that conversation. So she smeared him, and it really does come off as an excuse about the genocidal tweet. I believe she was talking about Israel. Everybody thought she was talking about Israel at the time, and she could have easily clarified instead of getting so defensive. And then she went on to really defend the idea that Israel was committing a genocide. And even when she went on Piers Morgan and he tried to talk to her about the actual definition of genocide, she's like, well, it's funny, every time someone brings it up, I'm like, well, what number? How many people have to die? And he's like, it's not about a number, it's about intent. She's like, no, it must be about it, and the number. And he's like, no, I'm telling you the actual definition. It's about an intent to wipe out the people. And then when she couldn't win on that, she's like, I don't even know why we're so hung up on the word. It's like, because you're using the word, Candace, and the word holds weight. So why? And you use it. You don't know what it means. That's not so surprising. Like I said, she got in trouble with that Hitler comment because she didn't know actually what a globalist and a nationalist was. But that's the background on the genocide tweet. Again, I have videos and stuff on this in articles that you guys can go back and watch.
You're free to disagree with Israel's conduct, and you're free to oppose the Netanyahu government. But the idea that Israel is committing genocide or that Netanyahu is a war criminal is just factually baseless. Unfortunately, Candace routinely makes insinuations about Jews that both lovers of anti-Semitism and haters of anti-Semitism both agree is anti-Semitic. And in almost every one of these instances, Candace says nothing to the anti-Semites who cheer her and only pushes back against those who disapprove of her comments. On February 28th of this year, Candace, just asking questions, posted, quote, time to look into the history and profiteering of pornography. Her replies were immediately flooded with anti-Semites cheering her for the question and providing the answer that they interpreted her to mean, the Jews. Once again, Candace did nothing to disabuse the anti-Semites of their assumption. But when Anthony Koch came to the exact same conclusion, Candace pushed back, saying, quote, this is utterly insane. I tweeted that porn is harming men in our society, and this person has interpreted that as an attack on Jews. This is an example of clinical insanity. There is no other explanation. But of course, there are other possible explanations. There are other numerous examples just like this, when the anti-Semites and anti-Semites all agree that what you're saying is anti-Semitic. Perhaps, as a very well-paid professional and expert communicator, you might consider communicating more clearly. Candace hasn't. She's only doubled down. In the last few weeks, she stated or implied that DC Jews control American politics, that Hollywood Jews force certain Black artists to create violent and filthy music, that a Jewish gang robbed and killed Michael Jackson, that a Jew killed Lee Harvey Oswald to keep us from finding out that the CIA killed JFK. All this while elevating Osama bin Laden and Muammar Gaddafi and defending Hitler's book burning and apologizing to Muslims on behalf of America for what she calls the brainwashing of Americans after 9/11 and alleged American war crimes overseas. None of which proves that Candace is an anti-Semite. I don't claim to know what Candace actually believes.
So the book burning thing, she ran a segment about the Nazi book burning, which was pretty wild. And Andrew Klavan pointed that out, and then she misrepresented his criticism of her. I did a video on that too. It's titled "How Candace Owens Deceives Her Audience." Um, so you guys can go back and watch that. But she's like, "What? Do you know what kind of books the Nazis burned?" And they burned all kinds of books, but she only brought up like really naughty books and stuff. And she didn't say, "Oh, you should go and burn books." That wasn't the point of the segment. But she talked about student activists going and burning the books, and I just think that's a weird way to refer to the brown shirts, to make it seem like, I don't know, there was some kind of like, I don't know, Moms for Liberty book burning club or something, and that's not what it was like. So it that coupled with a bunch of other things obviously made Daily Wire not look good, and people questioned, and he'll get into that, questioned their integrity and why were they letting this go on. People questioned why they hired her in the first place, and it really did make them look bad. I remember the tweets, and I do question why she got to do so much, got away with so much. They must have a lot of freedom in their contracts, which can be appreciated, sure. But if they have fact checkers running stuff, at least Candace said they have fact checkers, rigorous fact checkers. I don't understand how it got so far. So I guess I still have questions about how this all kept escalating, especially when they mentioned the Andrew Tate stuff. But he to me, he lays out a good case for why she's making them look bad, and it continues on.
When I've asked her directly what she believes, she's told me, quote, "I believe what the people believe. I am the voice of the people." Never mind that subordinating your beliefs to the people is both pandering and immoral. It's also vague. Who are the people? And what is it that they believe? Based on her content of late, I can't think that she means Americans broadly or even conservatives broadly.
That's also like a really wild statement, because you got to think, like, they must have conversations with her during this time when she's posting all these things, and she is under a company. So there must have been a conversation with Jeremy and Caleb or somebody about her content. And if they sat her down and said, "What do you believe?" and her response was, "I believe what the people believe." Why are they paying you? What does that mean? It is too vague. It is very shape shifty. And people are supposed to come to the commentators and stuff because you would trust that they have some kind of grip on these situations, some kind of insight, hopefully good moral insight. You know, and if someone is just telling you what they want to hear, is, they just have itching ears and they're just appeasing people. Like, there's really good there's a friend of mine on TikTok. Her name is This Is Savvy, and she's very spicy on TikTok, but if you want to go follow, she got a little bit more bite on her on TikTok. I'm not TikTok, on X, if you want to follow her on X, but on TikTok, she mostly does movie reviews and stuff now, but she does other content too. But she has over 1 million followers, and she would just warn people, like, however you make your following is how you have to keep it. So that's really good advice, because some people, they get into politics and they do rise up very quickly with like very extreme antics, but you have to keep up the extreme antics to keep going. And that's why I think Candace's content just can constantly just escalates into more and more and more. Macron is a man, and that conspiracy and another conspiracy and more gossip, conspiracy and conspiracy. It's just got to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And how do you keep that up? Just keep exaggerating and going harder, I guess. I've always, been like, I'm gonna just say how I feel and what I believe, and if people don't jive with it, that's just then I respect them for their respectful disagreements. If they want to leave, I thank you for their time. And if you stick around, I really appreciate you. But if people are mad because I might support Trump or criticize Trump, or if I they came because I did anti trans content, but then they're mad because I'm very pro life and they don't want to stick around. That's fine. I'm still gonna be me at the end of the day. I'm not gonna curb my feelings because this whole podcast and website and all the stuff that I do is about expressing my opinion on politics and so on. So this idea of like I believe what the people believe is so goofy to me. It's so goofy. And it's really not a good answer for your bosses on a conservative like platform. So very interesting. Very interesting.
It seems far more likely to me that the people Candace is the voice of are the very people celebrating what she's saying. Here's one of the most prominent anti-Semites in the country giving his perspective on the answer to that question.
I have to stand. I have to stand because she's cooking. She cooked.
Obviously, these captions that are on here are just wrong. You probably have noticed he said I have to stand and she's cooking. So I just wanted to point that out. He was very like pro Candace at one before he was allowed back on X. He had a profile that was like Candace Stan. He actually talked to Jeremy in a live on X Space, and Candace was listening in on that and stuff too. But yeah, he was like really pro Candace for some of the stuff that she was saying. He eventually started criticizing her because I don't know exactly why, but he started complaining about her conspiracies being too crazy and that she isn't good at research and she's making the rest of them look bad. So he eventually did turn on her, but he was, lifting her up as well. And before I don't know what they're kind of he's really ragging on her right now, but she had him on and they like chit-chatted, and so they have this kind of weird relationship. But even when she was listening to the X Space, she was like, "Oh, I didn't know that Nick was fed to the ADL," and she was defending him as well. And it was just kind of weird.
That's crazy. She tweets a picture of Rabbi Shmuley. Bill, she writes. Bill. Nothing else. Incredible. She writes Bill in that, by the way. If you hear that in my AFPAC 4 speech, I'm giving her credit. I'm stealing that from her. She said, the unholy rabbi. Dude, goated with cook.
Candace in that episode from 2 weeks ago. Of course, it's not just her associations with anti-Semitism that are damaging to our brand. Over the last few months, Candace has embraced the worst conspiracy theories and the worst people. When she traveled to Romania to interview Andrew Tate, Caleb was clear that we wouldn't pay for her to rehabilitate a pornographer, con man, and an accused rapist. Candace assured him that hers would not be a softball interview. But of course it was. Candace allowed Andrew Tate to misrepresent his case, and she helped him do that. Candace trying to frame her position not as supporting the Tate brothers, but simply as being fair-minded about the charges brought against them. That might have been more convincing if she had ever said a single negative thing about them, or if she hadn't responded to, or retweeted them 73 times in the months since the interview.
The Andrew Tate interview was pretty insane that she did with him, and she was like, this was really fascinating that he brought this up and mentioned it, because people were definitely questioning like, how did this softball Andrew Tate interview end up like, why was she able to do this? So one, I'm assuming she lied to them. I do question, like, did they not watch it before she posted it? Like, what's up with that? Like, if they had such concerns, and like how much editorial control do the host have after they give them the money to do stuff? I'm glad they're like, hey, Andrew Tate is a bad person. They're accused of all these terrible things. We don't want to pay for that. And, you know, I guess she fooled them when she's like, I'm going to do a hard hitting interview or whatever. She totally didn't. There's one particular person, every time I talk about that Candace Owens, Andrew Tate thing, she thinks that she was like wildly attracted to him just because how she's glowing, interviewing me and stuff. But I mean, it's such um a glowing sort of interview, and she helps him cover up his past, and she's like, oh, you said some things 10 years ago, and oh, what if, you know, people, I would hate if people held me to stuff I did 10 years ago, when it wasn't stuff that he did 10 years ago. Even if you were unfamiliar with the cases and stuff, there's still things that he said on camera about his business that was absolutely egregious. And then the conversation outside of like his pimping history that she's, you know, trying to rehabilitate him over or whatever, and downplay his criminal record and the things he's been accused of, him saying that he decided to convert to Islam because, you know, she's supposed to be a Christian, and she's just like, oh, well, we're gonna miss you. What do you mean we're gonna miss you? He wasn't a Christian. They could be a cultural Christian or claim to be, but just because you identify as something doesn't mean you are. Like, we can recognize you by your fruits, bro. They wasn't a Christian. And just to be like, oh, that's sad. Aren't you gonna like ask him about the validity of like what he actually stands for and what he believes? Because if you go back and listen to Andrew Tate talking about Islam, because he will talk about he respects how they respect their faith and will defend their faith, but he's complimented them for defending it with intimidation, with violence. Christians defend their faith all the time. Just because they don't, I don't know, go attack somebody because they post a meme of Jesus or mock Christianity that kind of way doesn't mean that Christians aren't defending their faith. Apologists defend Christianity all the time. People like Inspiring Philosophy or Frank Turek, who she's obviously attacked a lot. You know, they defend their faith all the time. People like my dad, people like me, like we defend the faith. Do we do it through violence? No. But we don't need to launch another crusade to defend our faith. But Andrew Tate's like, Islam's going to be the last religion because they do it through violence. And David Wood has some good content about that if you want to go look more into that. But it wasn't like a defense of the gospel. I understand that she's interviewing him, but no pushback at all. None. Like, I mean, when Ben Shapiro talks to people, he'll ask questions and they can defend their answers and stuff. I mean, when he talked to Allie Beth Stuckey about Calvinism, he, you know, and she was explaining how it works. He's like, okay, well, how does that work with like personal responsibility if God preordains everything? You know, no kind of like pushback at all with that. So her interview with Andrew Tate was wild. And so was Tucker Carlson's interview with him too. Candace Owens did actually issue a challenge to people that she would be willing to debate people on the facts of the case. And I'm pretty sure Apostate Prophet and What Do You Meme both agreed, at least online, to debate her on the Andrew Tate case. And she didn't, to my knowledge, take anyone up on that offer. I'm sure they'd still be willing to do it. Milk Bar TV has a lot of clips of Candace Owens regarding Andrew Tate, just a lot of Andrew Tate clips and stuff. But her interview with him was wild, super softball. I don't understand why they still let it air, why they did trust her, but at least I'm glad they're like, no, we don't want you to do that. And she obviously wasn't honest about her intentions.
I want to be clear about this. Andrew and Tristan Tate are very bad men who have boasted and even sold courses teaching how to manipulate women through sex into doing pornography for your profit. And again, Candace is a professional communicator. She's very effective at saying what she wants to say. Probably as effective at that as anyone alive. And of course, Candace has recently said that she's willing to stake her entire professional reputation on the fact that French President Macron's wife was born a man, despite the claims already having been proven false in French courts. The lady has 3 children. She and her brother, whom the conspiracy theorists suggest is actually her, jointly sued and won against the people who first popularized the conspiracy theory in France. But most troubling to me,
before we go on to the next part, yeah, that was wild. They let her do that on their show too. Like, I'm like, I kept thinking, like, where's the Daily Wire in all this? Like, she's staking her reputation on this, which I don't believe. Like, even if when they take her to court and, it's I don't believe, even if they issue a judgment that's supposed to like bankrupt her personally, because her husband's still very rich, son of a British lord, don't you know? I don't believe that she would just stop. Like when she said, okay, the only person who can stop me is Erica Kirk, and Erica's like, stop, and she's like, well, I'll stop as soon as Erica proves that I'm lying or something. There's always going to be a goalpost move, and shift. That was a crazy thing to like jump on and obsess about and still push, because she's tied the French into the Charlie Kirk assassination plot and stuff. And it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. These lies that Candace engages in. And I wonder, like, if everybody's hair was on fire at the Daily Wire as the stuff kept escalating. And I'm like, how much editorial freedom did she have to act the way that she did for a long while? He doesn't mention the Kim Kardashian episode when she didn't like the Skims inclusive underwear that Kim put out, or the commercial that when she featured a woman in a wheelchair, and she said that was pandering and all kinds of different stuff. And when the internet erupted in rage and all these people were talking about Candace Owens, Candace Owens doubled down. Now, mind you, the underwear is actually inclusive and is actually for them. She made an episode that was titled "Not Everything Is For You," and was talking about why diversity and inclusion is actually not a good thing, and spent most of the time mocking people who were upset with her. I would have been mortified if I was Daily Wire. I thought that was well beneath the dignity of their company, which that wasn't the first thing I thought that Candace did that was beneath the dignity of their company. But that was awful. That was awful. And also like untrue, because people on the right care about diversity. Like, that's one of the reasons why she was hiring a turning point, because they wanted to diversify the Republican Party and get a bunch of people to leave the Democrat Party. Like, there's blacks for Trump offices and all kinds of different stuff. Like, it's just it's not true that people don't care about diversity. People do. It's when people talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, it's really equity that is really the main issue that makes everything terrible. Because it's about pushing not equality, but to make sure there's particular outcomes, and it'll end up hurting some people. Like Ben Shapiro did a show today talking about some piece about how people in Hollywood and corporate America really started focusing on diversity at the expense of young millennial professionals and stuff. And they are ousted from like other positions of power and writing rooms and so on, in favor of having Black queer women and things like that. Not that you can't hire folks like that, but diversity should happen naturally, and you should hire people who are good for the job, and not be like, I really want this Black lesbian in this position, So that when you have those sort of quotas in mind, that's when things get kind of messed up. So anyway, let's keep watching.
Is Candace's deeply disingenuous use of the term Christ is King. As best I can tell, her first use of this term publicly was in response to Ben. If you recall, Ben was asked at a small private event in a Jewish home how he felt about Candace's behavior post-October 7th. Ben was caught on camera saying that he found her behavior disgraceful and disreputable. That day, Candace posted a verse from the New Testament that man cannot serve both God and money, with a follow-up comment of Christ is King. The The remark was widely interpreted as a rebuke of Ben and to mean that Candace could not be bought off by Jewish Ben Shapiro. She and her opinions are in service to God. Ben responded in anger. He said that if Candace believed her contract with the Daily Wire was standing between her and God, she could quit. Candace's response was classic Candace. After saying but not saying exactly what she meant and then being called out on it, she denied that she ever meant it in the first place, and how dare you suggest that she did.
Now, Candace Owens did reply to this leak, and she was like, of course she knew about it. I had heard that there was a town hall. I didn't really doubt that it happened. But I think she maybe mentioned it first that there was a town hall about her, but she hadn't seen it herself until this got leaked. And the only thing that I saw that she said about it, she might have did like a live or something about it. I don't know. But at least on X that I saw immediately, the response was about this Christ is King text. And I can show you guys the original text and whatnot, and what she said after. We'll do that at the end. But she didn't say anything about the Tate interview or staying silent when they were playing the cha-ching noises when they mentioned Ben Shapiro's wife and all the other stuff. That's what she mentioned, the Christ is King thing, which there's no way to get around the fact that she lied about it. So she tells a new lie to reaffirm the old lie she's like, I was tweeting, from Matthew, it had nothing to do with Ben, even though she's on video admitting that it's about Ben on her own show and on the Breakfast Club, and also on Piers Morgan's show, I believe, as well. It was totally about Ben, and she did tweet Christ is King at Ben, or at least she retweeted his tweet, and under the retweet is Christ is King. And prior to that day, there's no public line, at least writing of her writing Christ is King. And people say we shouldn't be ashamed to say Christ is King. I don't think you should be if you are you're legitimately saying Christ is King because you love Christ. But a lot of people are using that to harass Jews. She was on the space where Nick Fuentes was like, that's what Groypers say. I thought everyone knew that that's a Groyper phrase. Nick Fuentes, I've seen him, talk about I love Hitler. Then there's people who chant Christ is King after that. So there are some shady people who do use it to harass Jews, and I can show you also an example of that, because people use that phrase at Ben Shapiro's sister on just pictures of her with her baby. So a lot of people say Jesus is King of Kings, Lord of Lords. I don't normally hear people say Christ is King, even in church settings. And I've been all across the country. I've been, not a lot of places outside of the country. I went to the Philippines and stuff, been to Canada, but I guess now I've been to Israel, but I've been to Japan for a hot second, but I haven't been a lot of places outside the country, but I've been all over the country in a lot of different churches my whole life. And I just don't normally hear people say Christ is King like that. So I see more people say it now. That's become a big topic of conversation, but he is right. The first time, at least on X, was that I could find was really about Ben, and it was clearly about Ben. And I can prove that to you. But she doubled down on that lie and didn't mention the rest of the stuff.
She said, quote, "You've been acting unprofessional and emotionally unhinged for weeks now, and we've all had to sit back and allow it, and have all tried to exercise exceeding understanding for your raw emotion. But you cross a certain line when you come for scripture and read yourself into it. I will not tolerate it." She posted again, quote, "You are utterly out of line for suggesting that I cannot quote biblical scripture. The Bible is not about you." Then commented on that post, again, "Christ is King."
Yeah. When another thing, like Ben did talk about her at that private event, and someone did record him, and that got posted online. And then everyone was reacting to that. And then she hurried up and went to Tucker, and they had an interview about it. But her saying the line about "you have been acting unhinged for weeks and we've had to sit back and tolerate." I'm like, who is we? Like, who is we? Because that makes it like way more gossipy, and it's like, are there other people at the Daily Wire that are like, Ben is acting unhinged, instead of it being between her and him? It makes it seem like more people are against him and stuff. So it just continued escalating, and she's not stupid. She's not stupid.
Here's the thing. I agree that Christ is king. All Christians agree that Christ is king. But why say so here? What's the implication? If not that Candace serves Christ and Ben doesn't. It certainly appears to me that Candace is attacking Ben for the very fact of his Jewishness. In fact, anti-Semites love to bandy about the term Christ is king. Here's our pal Nick Fuentes again.
That's what it's all about. When I come out to these rallies and I see everybody and they bring their rosaries and American flags, I know we're on the right side of history.
It's probably worth remembering here that Fuentes, when he isn't praising our Lord, has called for a holy war against Jews and said that, quote, "we will make them die in the holy war. They have no future in America. They will go down with their satanic master." Christ is king. Yeah, Christ is king. But the term Christ is king is not a gang affiliation. Christ isn't glorified by your using him as a weapon to cudgel your enemies. And to anyone who would say it's never wrong to say that Christ is king, please tell me what then is meant by the third commandment: "Thou shalt not carry forth the name of the Lord thy God in vain." Surely if one were to rape and murder someone, like Hamas did on October 7th, but all the while shouted to the dying person that Christ is king, we would all agree that 3 horrible crimes were committed. Rape, yes. Murder, yes. But also the crime of implementing God in the first 2 crimes. That's carrying forth the name of the Lord in vain. That's what anti-Semites are doing when they say Christ is king. Christ is king, sure enough. And he recommends himself in our struggles, not us in our petty, nudge, nudge, wink, wink anti-Semitism. All of this has badly tarnished the brand and reputation of the Daily Wire and of me personally as the front-facing CEO.
It sure did.
One need only revisit the thousands of virulently and overtly hateful commenters celebrating what they see as Candace's turn against the Jews, the remarks from Nick Fuentes, the myriad stories written in journals from Mediaite to the Washington Examiner to the Jewish Journal to the Times of Israel, the New York Post, the Daily Mail, and on, or from the many, many people disappointed with the Daily Wire and with me and even with Ben for not acting sooner, to see how badly marred our reputation has become. And so we're ending our relationship with Candace effective immediately. We're not canceling Candace as in cancel culture. Candace has every right as an American to damage her own brand. If I were the CEO of a platform like X, I wouldn't kick Candace off of it. But I'm not the CEO of a platform like X. I'm the CEO of the Daily Wire. The Daily Wire is not a platform. The Daily Wire is a publisher. Daily Wire is not a place where people publish their own thoughts. It's a place where we curate the thoughts that we largely align with and voices we believe are doing good in the world. Just thoughts and voices who happen to agree with me or happen to agree with Ben. I disagree with all our hosts, some of them. But Candace has now become a voice I can't align with. I believe that she's doing great harm in the world and to the brand that I've worked really hard to build over this last decade, and I'm just no longer willing to subsidize it. And I want to be clear about one more thing. We're not giving in to any pressure from any outside group. Rabbi Shmuley, who Candace has called...
Hold on, he's going to go on a rant about Rabbi Shmuley, but yeah, after Candace was canned, people were like, oh, what about free speech? It was such a dumb talking point, and Candace would go on different platforms and like, oh, what about free speech and stuff? What Jeremy said is accurate. Like, it's a publisher, it's not a platform. You can still go and say what you want. We're not canceling you, but why should we subsidize it? And even in the X space where he was in, that Nick was in as well, they were asking him questions about Candace and can you say things, you know, because they believe that she was canned and let go because of her comments about Israel, and it just really was deeper than that. I don't know if people actually believe that or if they're just being willfully dishonest about it. Because if you're paying attention, she did a lot of crazy things that were worth letting her go, which obviously Jeremy just went over a lot of it. And people like took a snippet of the conversation and tried to make it seem like Jeremy wouldn't allow voices that were critical of Israel, which he didn't say. And someone had miscaptioned a video snippet from that space. I got into a back and forth with someone like last week about it. I'm like, did you listen to this clip? Like he's not. But Jeremy even pointed out that not Michael Knowles, Matt Walsh doesn't believe in foreign aid really, and he doesn't believe our money should go to Israel other places. He doesn't. And Matt, he'll maybe say some things about foreign policy. He doesn't find it that fascinating. He cares more about domestic cultural stuff. But you know, he's not anti-Israel or whatever. But he's just like, it's not America first. It's not my thing. Like, why are we all obsessed and talking about it? You know, and Ben obviously was really impacted by October 7th and talked about it a lot. And they just have different views. But Ben Shapiro has been vocal about Israel before, and he actually has a speech that you can watch online about things that Israel does that he disagrees with, that they should fix as a nation. So it's not that you can't disagree with Israel. That's always been a red herring, I suppose. And a lot of people will say that they have criticism of Israel, but it's really deeper. Like someone, you know, was saying stuff to me earlier today, and they left a comment. There's a bunch of crazy stuff in the comment, but one of the things they mentioned something about Zionism, like a Zionist is someone who believes in Israel's right to exist. I'm like, why don't you believe in Israel's right to exist? And their response was there were already people there. And I'm like, Israel, well, I'm like, Jews have always had ties to Israel. I'm like, I've been there. Like, you can go to David's palace. You can go see like 2,000-year-old roads where Jews would hide under the road to hide from Romans, you know, who were sacking the place. And you can see where the Ottoman Empire like paved over ancient architecture to put in their own kind of stuff, and like it's been colonized and reconquered again and again. And the idea that they'll just be like, oh, there are other people there. There's always been a tie there. But if you're gonna say, well, and I said that there was the UN partition plan, obviously, and also the fact that Israel has defended their land. Right? You win land in warfare. They've even given up some land for peace. So I'm like, the ways that you can legitimize yourself as a nation, Israel has done that different ways. But to say that there are people here before, therefore they don't have a right to exist. If we apply that logic to other nations, does the US not have a right to exist? There are people here before the settlers got here. Do we not deserve to have a country? Should we just like tear up our constitution and just let everybody coming across the border? And this wasn't a left-wing person who was saying this. This is someone who considers himself to be on the right, who said that they really like my content, but just didn't, I guess, like it right now and agrees with Candace on stuff. But I'm like, the criticism that certain people have toward Israel, it doesn't make any sense. Like, people complain about AIPAC, for example, and they're like, oh, well, they should have to register, you know, under FAR. I'm like, okay, but they're not the government of Israel. This is Americans that have this organization, and that's why they don't have to register. And they're like, well, how come? No, how would you feel if there were other groups like Arab groups or whatever that you know push for that were Americans but pushed for different stuff in the Middle East? I'm like, that those groups exist. What are you talking about? They don't have to register FAR. Those things exist. You don't know that they exist, so you only have criticism for AIPAC, and you don't even know what AIPAC is and what it does, and that there's other things that are comparable to AIPAC. What's with all these unique criticisms of Israel, or even how they decided to engage in warfare after October the 7th. If something comparable had happened to the United States of America, we would not have been as nice as Israel was. And you can look at the devastation of Gaza and say, well, that didn't seem so nice. It could have been worse, I'm telling you. And that just kind of happens when you build everything. Well, you build terror tunnels under everything and hide amongst civilian population and stuff. Urban warfare is not pretty, but man, if someone had did something like that to the United States of America, I don't think we would have been doing all them phone calls and roof knocks and all that stuff. I just don't think so. And we wouldn't have let the world try to lecture us on nothing. As Israel was lectured and had to wait and all kinds of stuff before they went in and really did operations like they probably needed to. And they just get criticized in a way that's just so bizarre to me. So a lot of people who say they're questioning Israel, it seems like they're not really questioning Israel. And they say Zionists, but it doesn't seem like they actually mean Zionists. And a lot of people don't even know what that word means. So anyway, we'll keep watching.
Holy and accused of blackmailing her is, as far as I can tell, an abject attention whore. I don't much care what he thinks. I don't much care what kinds of threats that he made. He's continued to do that. Dennis Prager, but both then and again, Ben doesn't have the authority to fire Candace because he's not a majority owner of the business and he's not an executive in the company. But he's famous and he's Jewish, so Rabbi Shmuley is happy grandstand by demanding that he do so anyway. As for Dennis Prager, Candace hasn't worked for PragerU in 3 years, and as far as I know, Dennis isn't an executive at PragerU any more than Ben is an executive at the Daily Wire. But again, famous, Jewish, and so Rabbi Shmuley is happy to grandstand. Charlie Kirk, by contrast, who runs TPUSA, where Candace does currently give speeches and make a nice living. Shmuley hasn't said anything about him. Charlie's famous, but he isn't Jewish. That's the kind of guy Rabbi Shmuley is, and the reason that we would never give in to any kind of pressure from a man like him. This decision has nothing to do with Shmuley or any other Jewish pressure coming to bear. This is about the very Christian CEOs of the Daily Wire finally seeing what we were both loath to see before, what I was loath to see before, that Candace is not on our team. She's not pursuing the future that we're pursuing. She's not appealing to the audience we're appealing to. She does not hold the values that we hold to. I gave her every benefit of the doubt. I gave her far more benefit of the doubt than I should have, and I'm done. Candace violated the terms of her contract in myriad ways. She has a contractual obligation not to tarnish our brand, but she has. She has a contractual obligation not to do anything that a reasonable person might construe as anti-Semitic or to align her brand with anti-Semites, but she has. And by the way, it was her attorney who suggested that we put that clause in her contract in the first place after the Kanye mess. It wasn't our idea. For all of those reasons and for many more, we're enforcing our rights under the contract to terminate. Now, I know that this will cause a lot of confusion, harm, and pain for a lot of you in this room, especially for those of you who've worked really hard on Candace's content, or for those of you who, like me, have only ever seen her as one of the most talented and important voices in the country. And I'm sorry for that. I hope that we live to see Candace come back from this dark path that she's taken. Again, I see her as one of the most talented people in the country, and when she uses those talents in service of the good and the true and the beautiful, I don't believe that there is anyone better, maybe in all of the world, than she. That's not what she's doing today. I hope that she does it again. She won't be doing it at the Daily Wire. And
that is the town hall. So very fascinating thing to learn there. After his X space, I figured, I'm like, okay, she was fired. But the reasons why weren't exactly laid out. We knew the Crisis King thing was a reason, and that her anti-Semitic type of content was a thing. But there were other reasons. I'm glad he mentioned the Andrew Tate stuff and the Macron thing, because I'm like, this is all nuts. How is Daily Wire just letting all this happen? And he's right, it was damaging to the brand. But very fascinating that her lawyer was the one who put that in the clause in the contract, that if she does something that a reasonable person would deem to be anti-Semitic, that they could go ahead and terminate her contract. So I wonder if she wanted her contract terminated. And I wonder how much further they had to go, because some people speculated that her contract might have been ending anyway, and didn't know for sure if she were fired, or if they just agreed to like part ways. And she was fired. She was fired. So I don't know if Crowder just wanted to show this to you know, let people know what happened. Again, his tweet about it, about not playing games, was curious, but I think it really did make Jeremy look good in the Daily Wire, and really um vindicated them in a lot of ways. There's a lot of people who disagreed with the Daily Wire once Candace was let go. I worked very hard to try to let people know, like, no, that was a just decision. And that's one of the reasons why I made some articles about it and content about it, because I thought that Daily Wire was being unfairly treated by a lot of the public after Candace was gone and the blowback from it. And some people I've seen recently admit, like, oh, when they let her go, I wasn't on Ben's side, but now I see that there was all this kind of stuff going on. So at least there's that. But there was definitely blowback after she was let go, including people who are like, I thought they were for free speech, which I always thought was a brain dead take. They don't have to subsidize the crazy things that you say if they don't want to pay for that. So anyway, Candace Owens did reply to all this. So let me go ahead and show you what she said. Now, you guys heard a lot of things, but this is the thing that she decided to focus on. This Christ is King stuff. This is genuinely shocking. I had obviously heard about this town hall, but seeing it is an entirely different thing. I want to point this out. Jeremy Boring is clear here that Ben felt that my tweeting Christ is King alongside biblical scripture was aimed at him. The fact is that I tweeted scripture from the Gospel of Matthew entirely by itself. It had absolutely nothing to do with Ben or any other Jewish person for that matter. When Jeremy asked me to apologize for how someone else felt about biblical scripture, I refused to do so. Apologizing for something you didn't do makes you weaker. Apologizing for your faith because you are scared to lose income makes you a coward. I would agree with that stuff on normal circumstances, except she's lying. She's lying. This production level town hall is obviously what came next. Jeremy always had a flair for the dramatic. With Jeremy Boring no longer at the helm, the Daily Wire has moved in a different direction, and there is, in my honest opinion, a better management. And by all accounts, the employees are much happier. If I could go back, I would change nothing. Christ is King. So it's fun. That's what she decided to comment on after saying that, to relitigate that particular thing, which is she's obviously wrong about. And so I guess I could kind of wish I could be a fly on the wall when they're confronting her about this tweet, and she's just like, no, he feels that way, but that's not what it was, when obviously the evidence was there and it's still there. So I retweeted Candace's post. I also wrote under it. I think people really liked the response under it. I got a lot of interactions from it. But so Candace admitted on her podcast, that it was about Ben. Because she said that she was calling for peace after someone attacked her. So if you're putting up a scripture about blessed are the peacemakers after someone attacks you and you're calling for peace, isn't that a reaction to them? Therefore, the scripture is about them in response to them. And everybody knew that. Everybody could understand that. So there's that. But she didn't only quote the blessed are the peacemakers. And again, she also talked about this on the Breakfast Club. I'm pretty sure she did on Piers Morgan's too. So she wrote in the past, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are ye when men shall revile you and persecute you, and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. So I also thought this was like pretty self-centered, I guess, like Ben coming at you for this stuff that he said she was faux sophisticated, which she was. Her takes were pretty bad and stupid. So I mean, he was right on the money as far as his criticism of her. And she posts all these scriptures out. Blessed is, you know, who was persecuted for my sake. Were you persecuted for Christ's sake when Ben came at you? It just seems like such an inappropriate scripture to go ahead and post. But what's really inappropriate about it, and again, it's absolutely about Ben, or in reaction to Ben. This next part about no one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one or love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. That's not in the same chapter. That verse doesn't follow the Beatitudes. They're in different chapters. So why did she feel the need to point to, I was just calling for peace. And by the way, I'm going to tack on the scripture about dual loyalty. We're not stupid. And so many people took it that way. She didn't correct the record and be like, no, I didn't post that about dual loyalty and serving two masters because of that. I want people to understand what I'm saying clearly. No, Ben interpreted that it was about him and said, if you feel that taking Daily Wire money is coming between you and God, you can quit. He came at her pretty aggressive, and there was another tweet that she tweeted that Jeremy did read, but we're going to look at this one when she retweeted him and said, Candace, if you feel that taking money from Daily Wire somehow comes between you and God, by all means quit. And she said, you are utterly out of line for suggesting that I cannot quote biblical scripture, which he did not do. And she said, the Bible is not about you. And then she said, under it, Christ is king. So she denies that it was about him and said it had nothing to do with him. And she still denies that she tweeted at Christ is king at a Jew or in an argument with a Jew. That's what she said on her show, but she obviously did. And so she decided to reintroduce this lie to the world. For what purpose? She obviously lied. So someone had posted the Breakfast Club video under that where she admitted that it was about that. Might have did it under my comment. Let me see if I can find it real quick. The podcast with her on it, I can pull up my video. It was on the Breakfast Club. There's a clip here, but this is just a screenshot. This isn't the but this is for the episode where she mentioned it because they asked her about Ben, and so she said that she was calling for peace, and that's why she posted the scripture, and he decided to react with like not peace is what she said. But that's what she was maintaining or whatever. So I don't understand why she would say it's not about Ben and while going around telling people that she clearly did it as a response to Ben. Let me see if I can pull up the video that I did real quick that has the clip real quick. Or maybe I can't do it real quick. My YouTube is kind of slow. Acting kind of slow. Oh no. It's got one of those wait for it to respond things. Okay. How Candace Owens deceives her audience. I got it. So I got a couple videos about Candace. And this is the one where it's like how Candace Owens deceives her audience. And love Cobra Kai. I don't know, that's on the side there, but I have to go back. There are chapters about this. Here we go. I won't play everything about the tweets. I'm just going to play the portion where she talks about it on her show. Also want to get back to the Christ is King.
Andrew, for 5 entire months, had been seething. I mean, unbeknownst to me, never mentioned it to me, never when I saw him, over a tweet that I had sent last November where I shared a Bible verse. And I ended the Bible verse, here it is, take a look at it, by saying Christ is King. It's just a Bible verse, okay? You will note that nobody is tagged in this verse. This was not a response to any thread. It was a standalone tweet. But remember, Andrew is lying his face off, right? So he says, okay, this is the tweet that upset me. Now I'm just going to pretend that this tweet was delivered in a different way. And here is how he lies again.
The truth that hid wickedness, that I thought was the most wicked truth to use, was the truth that Christ is King. You know, when you spit that phrase at Ben Shapiro, that she used Christ as King in an argument with Ben Shapiro, where it obviously carried this weight. And so that's why I was addressing it.
So there you have it. No, of course, I did not spit that phrase at a Jew. I just tweeted it all by itself. I did not use that phrase in an argument with a Jew. I just used that phrase at the end of a Bible verse because that's an appropriate time to use that phrase when I was calling for peace after actually somebody insulted me and called me faux sophisticated. And it was meant as nothing more than, I'm calling for peace. That's it. Christ is King of my heart. I don't need this drama because, if you remember, I was 38 weeks pregnant.
So she, in the video where she's debunking the Christ is King stuff, she admits that it was about Ben. And that's how everyone took it. So what was interesting, that this happened in the first place, and that she decided to relitigate the past here and focus on this particular thing in the video, is that she was coming for Ali Bastucky for issuing really good biblical correction, to I guess not directly at Candace, but definitely in response to Candace's responses to Ali, but teaching her audience how to discern properly and how to deal with disagreement, and to not bear false witness and so on. Ali did an amazing episode response, and it was so biblical, the teaching and stuff. And I'm just like, Candace is going to hate this because I think she's being driven by something different. But I'm like, I know she's not be able to take this. So she ended up attacking Ali, and she thinks she's really annoying because she's trying to teach people to use scripture instead of trusting their intuition, which is not what you're supposed to do. Our hearts are deceitful. That's what the Bible says. We're not supposed to just go by our intuition. And you can say, well, what about discernment? Well, your discernment isn't going to teach you to do things that are contrary to the word of God if it's a spiritual discernment. But intuition and discernment are not the same things. And at the end of the day, the word is the word. And if you're going against the word, then the answer is that you're wrong. So, and she also attacked Ali for having Jewish heritage as well. So people who think that she just questions Israel, you're wrong. That's not how Candace operates, especially not anymore. I don't know what her intentions always were. I don't know if it's just an evolution of the Israel lobby really attacked me at this point, try to cancel me, and then they try to cancel my friend, and her maybe becoming corrupt on this issue. I don't know how much of it is just her appeasing the darkest parts of the internet. I don't know how much of it is wanting revenge on the Israel lobby. So she's seeing how much she can turn people against Israel. Maybe it's just petty long-term manipulation. I don't know, but I know her actions. I know that she's lied about a bunch of things, spread a bunch of conspiracies. Someone had asked me, well, not asked me, they really did an accusation type question thing. They're like, "Oh, well, Candace said all the stuff about black people and black people's feelings and all the stuff. But when she says something about the Jews, you want to say something and you didn't say something before." Now, I have said stuff about Candace Owens before and criticizing her for like saying I don't care about George Floyd and other things like that. I've stood up for Candace in moments where I thought people were being unfair to her, but I definitely have criticized her in the past. So I'm like, this isn't a good like criticism of me. And they didn't actually really take me at my word for criticizing her. And I was like, okay, if you really feel like I didn't properly criticize her in moments where I should have, I'm like, did you say anything? And they're like, no, it's not that I thought you should have said something about BLM and when she was saying all that kind of different stuff. I agreed with her then. But my point is that you think Jews are so special. I'm like, no, that's not how it works. Like certain things that she was saying about BLM was accurate. A lot of criticism that people had about BLM and the media manipulation, focusing so much on police shootings of black men, like you have to look at them case by case, and if the police officer is wrong, it's wrong, and they need to be properly held accountable for that stuff. But the narrative that the police were going around and hunting black men, that wasn't true. Even like I talked a lot about a Reuters data scientist who was canned from Reuters for pointing out that the narrative was false. And so I was like a terror to people who wrote hashtag BLM. Like when they came across my profile, my timeline, I'm like, do you know this organization wants to get rid of the nuclear family? It's led by black lesbian Marxists. And then there was this information that came out about BLM and how much money they were putting into LGBT stuff, which I knew before she did her movie. Like that's information was already out there. I know a lot of people saw that stuff for the first time in her movie or whatever, but if you were studying the stuff about BLM, you already knew about all this stuff before her movie came out. So I was definitely criticizing BLM. So if she was saying some stuff that I thought was true, why would I criticize her for that stuff? But when I thought she would go too far, I would criticize her about that stuff. But I've criticized her obviously about other things. Like I mentioned the Kim Kardashian Skims line thing. I thought that was abhorrent, the way that she responded to that. And the Macron stuff, when people were bringing up Candace's conspiracies about Kamala Harris, which you guys know I don't like Kamala Harris. I'm like, I don't trust Candace Owens. If there's some kind of other source that claims that she's not actually black, you guys can bring that to me, but I don't trust a darn thing she says. And actually I looked more into that recently, and of course she was wrong. Of course she was wrong about that too. But she can't really research, or maybe she doesn't care about the facts and just gets enough like things to kind of get stringed to tie it together, but it doesn't really make sense. She's not good at researching, or maybe she just doesn't care. I don't know, just enough to make it look convincing as she tells different stories. But I've criticized her a lot, but when it comes to the stuff that she's saying about the Jews, a lot of the stuff isn't true. It's not true that Stalin had 3 Jewish wives. It's not true that Israel was committing a genocide. It's not true that Brian Mass was using genocidal language. There's a lot of things that she said just wasn't the case. Her revisionist history on World War II, the book burning stuff was weird. Her commentary on that, her like denying Nazi experiments was grotesque. Like there's a lot of weird, crazy stuff that she's done and said over the past couple of years that I've pointed out to, and I've been warning people about, and I've been chronicling it and following other people who've been chronicling a lot of these conspiracies. And some of these conspiracies are so deep, like, that you really have to know what you're talking about and be familiar with this stuff. But there'd be white supremacists or whatever, neo-Nazis, that be writing conspiracies in her comments, and then she would go and she'd deep dive and she'd spread a lot of that stuff in the ethos. So I share Jeremy Boring's opinion that I don't think she's really on our side, that we're not chasing after the same future. And Candace Owens said that right and left dynamics is slave slop. So if me being on the right is slave slop, why would I think that we're on the same side? I don't. But I'm not saying all this stuff because I think the Jews are so special as opposed to like black people. It's that I know she's lying about a lot of this stuff. And I think that's evil, not because they're the chosen people. I've never on my podcast talking about any of these issues been like, you need to support the Jews because the Bible says so. I've never done that. I was at an event and I heard people saying stuff like that. And I think that they were like expecting people to say stuff along those lines. And my sister's like, do you want to be interviewed? I'm like, I don't know, because that's not what I want to come across. I don't want to say that and stuff to kind of be my thing with my audience. I don't, like those aren't the kind of conversations that I'm having. And that's not how I want them to perceive the world or look at these issues in that kind of way. Like I want them to look at them objectively, and I haven't said any kind of content like that. So it's not anything about that. But I think that Israel was in the right for how they responded to October the 7th? Yes. Yes. I think if you don't understand just warfare, I think that's an issue. Yes. And if I only had one reason, could give you one reason to why I thought they were in the right, it's because Hamas killed Americans that day and kidnapped them. I don't think I need another reason other than that. I do. But as an American, yeah, I think I'm gonna cheer on those guys, because I don't think it's good for the world for people to engage in those sort of tactics and then to be successful because they're hiding in the terror tunnels that they built under their people with aid that they took that should have been enriching and helping the lives of the people they're supposed to care for, but instead they took it to enrich themselves and build terror tunnels. I don't think that those people should be rewarded. They could have given them up at any time. They could have laid down their arms at any time. The people could have helped to get these hostages home in some kind of way, word out to Israel. They could have rose up against Hamas. There's very few people that have spoken up. And unfortunately, terrible things have happened to them. But if more people stood up against them, maybe they could have overthrown them and worked with the Israeli government to get those people back. War is terrible. But Israel had an obligation to try to get their people back and to prevent another October the 7th from happening. And I've got loads of criticism for them. The idea of like some of these hostage swaps are like, I mean, I'm not in the room. I don't know what had to be said or whatever, but to me, releasing so many of these prisoners seems wackadoodle to me. And the fact that they need to consider like giving the death penalty and stuff to some of these people that they take. Like Yahya Sinwar was someone they had in their custody who they let go. So I think there's a lot of things I could criticize Israel about. But as far as this war, they absolutely were just in going after Hamas. Absolutely. And a lot of people who have criticism for them, like Dave Smith, just seem like moral idiots, which I've written about and talked about, but I'm going into a whole new conversation and I don't need to talk to you guys for 2 hours today. Anyway, thank you for joining me today. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, articles, videos, etc. One of the articles that you guys can check out is about the weaponization of Christ as King, because that's a conversation of as of late, especially since Candace kind of reintroduced the topic again. So I wrote about it at the time on blacktnews.com. So a lot of people didn't understand the background and how people are using it to harass people. I guess I did tell you guys that I would Inspiring Philosophy did speak out against her content at the time. There is a link there to the space, but here's Ben Shapiro's sister with her baby, and all she said is, "This is the best timeline, playing with her baby." And someone said, "Nice nose, careful you don't poke the baby's eyes out. Also, Christ is king." So people do use this to harass Jews, and that's just the fact. And Christ is king, right? And because Christ is king, if you are misusing his name, you will loathe the day one day that you did, because you're going to have to face judgment for that. You're going to have to face judgment for that. But when you do stuff like this, it's not because he's the Lord of your heart. So even people who aren't Christian will use Christ as king because they want to harass Jews. You think Andrew Tate is saying Christ is king because he believes Christ is king and he's the Lord of his heart? Or Jake Shields. Jake Shields admitted that he's not a Christian. He just does it to tick off Jews. So you guys can check out that article and other ones. But here's an example of that. When she did the Blessed Are the Peacemakers, someone posted this meme of Ben saying, "Give us Barabbas." Like, so people at the time knew that was absolutely about Ben Shapiro. And people are saying, again, just say what you want to say. And people are saying it reads as anti-Semitic. Dear Benacide Shapiro. So yeah, everybody knew what that was at the time. So anyway, I have articles like that. I have videos detailing more of this Candace Daily Wire situation if you want more receipts on that, to kind of understand what's going on. And I do think it is important. There are a lot of folks who write off Candace Owens and her supporters. Some of them think they're bots. Some of them just think that there are a lot of people from overseas and a lot of just lefties or whatever. And that might be the case, but there are a lot of people on the right who do like her content, who have been persuaded by her content that I think need to be corrected. And I have overlap with some of her fans and stuff. And I hope to persuade them into a better direction. I don't want everyone to follow Candace off this path, especially because beyond all this criticizing Israel stuff, there's this path she's going on as far as trying to destroy Judeo-Christian values and really trying to sever the tie of Judeo-Christian values while also, being friendly to Islamic fundamentalism and saying stuff like, well, I already mentioned, she said that Israel has always killed Christians and blamed Muslims. So trying to absolve, Christian persecution under Islamic regimes and act like it's all false flags or something from Israel. But she's also was asked a question like, or maybe she just asked a question, as an American, do you fear Zionists or Muslims? And she said Zionists. So that's insane to me. Our first foreign war was, Pirates of Tripoli. And again, October the 7th, they killed Americans and kidnapped them. And we could, bring up a lot of different terror events, including ones that have just been paused or stopped, or ones that have occurred. And that was her answer. So I plan to give a more thorough response to that particular clip, but I'm not just trying to gossip and rant about her because she's trendy. I think she is doing damage, and I'm just trying to wake people up to this, and also Tucker as well, because just like she was damaging the Daily Wire brand, I definitely think that Tucker's done the same to Turning Point, why they keep having Tucker. And I know Charlie didn't want to be bullied, and that made him want to like double down and have Tucker, but he's way more dangerous than she is. So anyway, more on that later. God bless you guys. Stay safe out there, and I will see you tomorrow. Oh, and if you do want to support the website, you guys can go to the website and do that at blacktnews.com. God bless you guys.